Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I be your captain, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Welcome, Mozz, once again to Full Stream Ahead, in a world of capes and lunatics, of gods and gamma monsters. Sometimes you need a lawyer. And in those times, you need She-Hulk, attorney at law. Welcome once again, Season 1, Episode 1, a normal amount of rage from She-Hulk, attorney at law. Jen Walters' world is turned upside down after a freak accident leaves her with superpowers. Our writers this week are Jessica, it's my little Christopher Walken there. Jessica Gao created this all for television. Stan Lee created the She-Hulk with John Buscema. Meanwhile, let's see here. Kat Coiro, C-O-I-R-O, Kat Coiro, did our directing this week. Jessica Gao actually wrote this. The Hulk was actually created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And hardest working two people in show business this week, Maz, it's Dana Schwartz and Cody Ziegler. Yes. Jennifer Walters' world is in fact turned upside down. And what can that mean for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Maz? I think a lot.
Lots of destruction. Usually, lots of destruction.
So let's just so we get the introduction. We get a very interesting take on the great power has great responsibility speech, in the fact that those with great power also comes great accountability. Which is a different twist on it, as we're talking about good old Roxanne. Well, we assume it's Roxanne. We assume that, when it comes to evil corporations, it's usually Roxanne. It's like how LexCorp is usually the evil corporation. I mean, yes, it could be Stain or one of the other groups. Could be Hammer. But we can probably assume it's Roxanne. And in this moment, she is preparing for her presentation, her closing arguments. Even as her well-meaning male lawyer friend, where's he? Drew Matthews, Dennis Bukowski, just tries to explain to her how this would come so much better coming from a man.
Did he say coming from a man, or did he say coming from me?
He said coming from me. He meant coming from him. And
I'm just wondering, I mean, like, just to,
just to play devil's advocate.
Right. Would he do the same thing if there was a guy in her position? I'm not sure he would.
I mean, honestly, he could just be a guy who just always wants to do the closing argument. He could say,
that's lawyers, right? They're all trying to make their case to be considered for a promotion or for partnership or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, they're painting it that way, but I'm just saying, we can't.
It's kind of like Thor when he said he should be the one to do the snap to bring everyone back. And there's a certain level of it where you can see Thor's point. It's like, everyone else sees him as fat Thor, but he's still freaking Thor. He's still freaking the god of thunder.
He's been Thor for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like, he's been Thor for 2 months.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, you can see his point, but you can also see the other person's point, especially Banner's point about how the energy is gamma, and it is something that he is more set to metabolize, as we see in this episode.
Right. So I mean, like, it's an interesting thought. Like, his blood is actually producing gamma. So if his blood falls anywhere that's not prepared to handle gamma radiation, it's going to destroy it, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, that seems to be the implication here. I mean, it's interesting how it all works out, because there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to unpack with everything they say about the use of gamma and all that kind of stuff, and how their bodies process gamma, presumably differently, but not necessarily inefficiently than other beings. And we're going to get to that, because there's a whole deeper level. I mean, honestly, if you're a big comics nerd like I am, there are so many levels onto this, starting with the accident. Now, as is said, this is a Sicarian messenger craft. Okay? And that is what the Hulk calls it. That is what everyone on YouTube called it. I don't know if it is, because again, as I said, it has a very distinctive purple and gold paint style, rather than the red and blue paint styles that the previous Sicarian crafts you've seen have.
Purple and gold, is that what, like Wakandan?
No, the purple and gold is the leader.
Well, who's the leader? Or who are they?
No, the leader is Samuel Stearns, the guy who, similar to Jen, got a little bit of Hulk blood in his head and suddenly had a Hulk brain. In the comic books, he just got exposed to a huge amount of gamma radiation and got super smart, because he was kind of a dumb guy. Well, and it's interesting how his story has evolved over the years, because originally he was just, a dumb janitor who got exposed to gamma radiation, and then whereas Bruce Banner, who was a super smart guy, got super strong, this guy got super smart. So that's their basic dichotomy. Now, since then, basically what they've established with Stearns is that he was actually a neurodivergent person.
What does that mean exactly?
It's like autism, but basically it's like, so basically everyone thought he was dumb because he had a hard time communicating and working things, but at the same time his brain could always solve these very complex puzzles. This is all retcons, but this is effectively who Samuel Stearns' character is.
Is it kind of like the bifurcated mind in a way? Is that what the syntax means? Sort of like the fact that the brain is going in two different directions. It's
actually what it means is like, so there's a mean of neurotypical behavior, and then there's neurodivergent behavior. Oh,
so it's not like two. It's just bent.
Yeah, it's like most people think. Most people think, it's as an example, most cultures read right to left. Every so often you're going to find a culture that reads left to right, top to bottom, bottom to top. That there's going to be some other way that they organize their communication process. And it's not good or bad. It's just divergent. It's a different take on it.
Gotcha.
So that is who the leader is. And honestly, that all fits into very much the leader we've seen in the MCU already. In this one, he's not a janitor. He's actually is a noted biochemist, but he may still have all kinds of quirks and difficulties being outside of the academic environment. Like when he's dealing with the thing he's good at it. And outside of that, it's all a bit more complex. So anyway, but this goes into this whole larger canonical thing. But here's the one thing that kind of hits me on it. When Jennifer and Bruce are talking after the fact, and Bruce says, "Oh yeah, that was a Sicarian messenger class vehicle. I should probably see what they were on about." And the thing about it is this is a spaceship that almost killed you and your cousin. And let's be clear, had the inhibitor not malfunctioned, Bruce would be dead. Had Jen not gotten Hulk blood in her, she would be dead. This was a near-death experience.
She does, because like before the Hulkening, she seemed to walk out of the truck like.
But she had cuts in her arms. She had cuts in her arms.
I know, but like I mean, I think she probably would have been all right without the Hulk blood.
It's a possibility, but I'm saying Bruce doesn't know that,
right?
And from Bruce's perspective, he may be thinking of it like the fact. And here's what it actually gets down to. So, the character of Smart Hulk gets a lot of relations to the Professor Hulk, which was something that was created effectively by the ringmaster of the Circus of Crime, and alongside what's his name, Doc Samson, Leonard Samson, who was played by Ty Burrell in the previous Hulk film.
Okay,
yeah, I know there's a lot of layers on this. Anyway, but what it was a Hulk with Banner's mind, but in order to function, he had to sort of effectively be separated from his more heavy emotions. And there's a whole plot line in this, which is that in that storyline, Emil Blonsky, winds up killing Betty Ross, Banner's wife, and then Professor Hulk effectively forgives him. And this comes back later because, as it turns out, he says, but Professor Hulk wasn't really Banner. It was cut off from my emotions. Right. So I couldn't actually feel it.
Wasn't his to give.
Exactly. And effectively what the establishment of it all is that effectively Professor Hulk eventually becomes Maestro, which is the evil Hulk that is from the Future Imperfect line, who after all the heroes die in a nuclear holocaust, he takes over the world and is effectively omnipotent dictator. You know, he keeps everybody on the planet under his control. Well, what few humans are left, and he's just the ruler of the world. That's the premise. Which is why, incidentally, I think for everyone that wants to do a Planet Hulk, I don't think they're going to do that when they do a Hulk movie. If they do a Hulk movie, it will be Future Imperfect by John Byrne, and that is going to be Banner meeting his future self, who is the natural progression of the Smart Hulk to an evil dictator who rules the planet. Anyway,
that sounds fun too.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. But let's get into the actual story and what we actually got.
So to get to that point, like, so Hulk's skin can't be permeated, but Banner's skin can. So he got cut while he was Banner.
Yeah.
And because the thing was tamping down on his Hulkness, he stayed Banner. And that's why he didn't Hulk out.
Well, he eventually hulked out because it was damaged. And effectively what happens is...
But he got cut first.
He got cut first, which caused the blood to start to Hulk, which caused the Hulk blood to go into Jen, and yada, 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 yada. Now, what's interesting about this is, and again, Hulk's skin can be permeated, but you need something like vibranium, adamantium, etc. to actually damage the Hulk skin.
Adamantium can hurt Hulk skin?
Oh yeah, very easy. That's why he's always paired up against Wolverine.
I always wondered. I was like, man, I wonder how that would, because like you can't. So it would just be like just beating him consistently for like 3 days while he's dazed. Like I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, it's because the reality is that when Wolverine like cuts the Hulk, it's just like cutting anybody else because the adamantium just goes through him like butter.
Really?
Really, yeah. And so, like, when they fight, and in fact, it has later been retconned into the concept that the reason why these two fight all the time is because that's the only way they can gather Hulk blood. And so every time they fight, Wolverine's just cutting the heck out of the Hulk.
Wringing out his costume afterwards.
Well, no, but like on everything, and they just go scrape off the Hulk blood. Now they've just got this constant supply of Hulk blood. This is the thing. Hilarious. All of this stuff that built into that first Hulk, that built into this is all stuff that they visited in the comics not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And so there is a real progression to what could happen with it. You tie into that the other idea of their event of that maybe the real threat in this is the intelligentsia, then suddenly you could get a lot more. You might even get a Wolverine in this. You don't know yet. Or somebody else who has a vibranium or adamantium weapon, who could really cause damage to the Hulk, and you can see people collecting that blood. Because in the end, it's all about the blood, which they even make a point of in this, when after Banner has run the tests on Jen's blood, he vaporizes it. Because he knows how dangerous that little bit of blood is. Because maybe he's already met the leader. Maybe he already knows what a little bit of Hulk blood can do.
Yeah, and God forbid, like some tiny beetle gets into some Hulk blood, drinks that.
You don't even want to know. That's how you get spider hams. Irradiate that spider, it bites a pig, suddenly you have a spider ham. Oh boy.
I'll tell you what I liked about this show. Right off the bat, they set the tone for the kind of show they wanted you to be. She breaks the third wall right away, and she goes, listen, I know you. You're not going to pay attention until I give it. So here it is. And I'm like, I appreciated that. I was like, okay, yeah, I know, me too. And I appreciate it. Thank you. So right off the bat, it's I didn't think it was going to be as much of a comedy kind of thing, but it's enjoyable. They don't take themselves too seriously. And I really dug that about it.
Yeah. I mean, I like the comedy. I like that. And here's what I'll say. I think that we're going to get the comedy, but I don't think it's going to be just comedy. I think that this is the opener. This is the get your foot wet. And it's in its own way, it's kind of like when you saw WandaVision. And it's opening up and it's just this little 50s sitcom, ding, ding.
Although
ding,
WandaVision was, in my opinion, the exact opposite of what they did. Mm-hmm. They sort of, we're just going to do this high, art hoity-toity thing. And you'll either come along or you'll come along because we know you're going to come along. So like here, they're more just like, okay, come on, we're just going to have some fun. It's like, I'm not going to, so like they're setting the tone. We're not going to be so deep into like whatever. It's going to be a fun show. Get ready to have a good time. And that's what it said to me. And I was like, I dig it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. And I can see that too. I can see definitely that there's definitely the levity. There's definitely this desire there's a desire to look at how ridiculous superheroes can be.
Well, I think what I find interesting about that is they're saying not just that there'll be levity in the show, but their relationship with us will have a measure of levity. We will relate to each other in a tongue-in-cheek kind of happy-go-lucky kind of fun way. And that's what I think I appreciated about that.
Yeah, and I get that, and I absolutely get that. I guess and it's partially just because, just a meme I recently saw was, and it was from the most recent Ms. Marvel meets Moon Knight issue. And there's just this scene where, so Moon Knight has a fellow disciple of Khonshu called Hunter's Moon, and they like team up together in this.
Oh, that's why I saw memes on Facebook saying Ms. Marvel and her two moon dads.
Yes, and there's this thing where, where one says, he is also a fist of Khonshu, and then Hunter's Moon says the fist of Khonshu, and it's just like, and it is literally just this idea that these two adult superheroes are going to be the teenagers, and me, Ms. Marvel, the teenagers. I guess I got to be the adult in this situation,
right. That's funny.
and it is a reality of superheroes at times that they can be silly and petty, and you don't want to think about your best heroes, but like for the ones that are a little bit more out there, you'll get these moments. And in this moment, I think that is a lot of what Jen Walters is approaching, which is like, and this is an interesting thing, especially when they talk about the idea of how you control your anger and how you deal with your anger, and literally her saying, Bruce, you never had to control your anger the way I have to control my anger, because in truth, you don't fear for your life about your anger. Whereas even if I were to lose my temper, like the worst is I get called a B or a C, and the best is that's what happens. Or someone freaking knives me.
Right.
And
what I really, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, make your point.
So what I really dug about that moment was they presented it in a way where it was used as a source of empowerment. It wasn't like, oh, woe is me or whatever. Like, most of these shows, when they try to be empowering, they end up just, sort of celebrating the victimhood, right? That's their angle that they take. And it's rare that you find somebody that does it well in a way that they can talk about serious issues, but make it about empowerment. And I thought, like, that's the way she took it. You have no idea. Like, and that was her, like, confidence level. It wasn't like, it was like, you have no idea how tough I've had to become. So I thought that was really, really a cool way for them to deal with that.
Yeah. And now there is an interesting secondary level to this, which actually also feeds into my Smart Hulk is Professor Hulk is Maestro theory. Because, of course, although not officially established in MCU canon, in comic book canon and in the Ang Lee canon, Bruce Banner was horribly abused his whole life, which caused his DID. Similar to what happened with Mark Spector. So that effectively the Hulk became one of his personas. And here's an interesting thing. Because Jen is the younger cousin, even if people knew that about Banner's father, they probably didn't talk about it much. So Jen might not know what Bruce actually went through, and then of course Bruce never talks about it. And then this Bruce isn't going to talk about it because, again, he's separated from his emotions. And again, then when you get into that whole comparative tragedy question, the reality is that at the end of the day, Bruce can never really understand Jen's, because yes, Bruce went through this trauma, but it's a very different trauma.
Right.
The power levels were very different, and it's something that Bruce, after he separated from his father, it's a scar he carried with him, but it wasn't in his daily day. It's a memory, not constant. And so it's at different levels, and but
they never went there, and that's what I appreciated. It wasn't a competition of tragedies, whatever. It was just
exactly
a competition. She was just sort of like, no, you don't understand. I'm a BA. Like, let me show you. So I thought that was really. It never needed to devolve into like that sort of a conversation.
And then, I think there's another level on all of this also, which I think you kind of get in the subtext, but it's not as, maybe it is obvious because I got it, but which is the fact that Banner's really lonely, and this is the first time he ever had anyone where he felt a connection, which is ironic because it's like one of these things where I think that if he and Emil met and could just put all the trouble aside, they might become best buddies. I could just
crazy though.
It's a little crazy, but you know what? I could.
No, Emil's a little crazy. He's a little ambitious. I don't know.
No.
And Hulk, he's a pretty zen dude,
I know, but what I'm saying is, I could absolutely see, and like if they go full comedy, there will be a scene of Abomination and Hulk running down the beach as they play "People, Let Me Tell You About My Best Friend," which of course is meta on 3 levels for those who know about, one of Bill Bixby's earlier sitcoms, just the idea of, that these two might meet as like, okay, we're not going to fight, but let's just talk. As like, yeah, man, I know what you mean. It's rough being a freaking gamma monster all the time, and that would make for an interesting thing. So that's my big prediction for a fun, maybe episode 5 kind of thing. You get that Banner Blonsky meeting where they just sort of start talking. They talk through their trouble, and then the next scene is just them on the beach in Cancun, just playing in the surf. So like a Rocky and Apollo thing when they're playing in the surf. I could see that. I could absolutely see that.
I mean, that'd be great.
That would be great. Though it's not Banner's show, it's She-Hulk's show.
Right.
But we have all of this Hulk lore that we're looking at, which is why I have to know about Leader. I really want, because we see that there's some kind of a group meeting for, we're assuming Gamma mutates that Blonsky's at. I want to see that run by Ty Burrell. I want to see Doc Samson actually there running the meetings as Ty Burrell, Doc Samson, just doing the psychological breakdowns on all of these superpowered beings. I mean, that's just a gimme in this. Like, these are these Easter eggs. They're not even really Easter eggs. These are like important plot points that could make it for a great thing.
Do you know how many episodes we're going to get of this thing?
We're supposed to get 9.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, so it's got a good long order. I mean, I think a lot of them are like 30-minute bits, but that's still, I'm not complaining.
Like at one point she's like, okay, lawyer show. And now that I'm sitting there thinking about the end of the episode, like, what is it going to mean for her closing arguments? What is it going to mean for how everybody else sees her? Was the idea of civic responsibility displayed in her actions enough to inspire the jury to say, hey, you know what? She's right. Or is it going to ruin her career? And then I start thinking about, like, man, it would be an interesting show if, like, just every week we got a new case that she has to try or something like that. I was like, maybe I am. I was like, I think I'm down for a lawyer show too. I wouldn't be mad at an episode where she doesn't Hulk out and she does control herself and she gets through a case and gets it done. That would be a really fun watch.
Well, and what's interesting, and of course, for those, I mean, obviously there's a lot out there. And the premise of the next scene, because of course this whole premise is that, she's been, that she's going up against, Goodman, Lieber, Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg and Book, which is the other law firm. Of course, named after the like 3 big names in Marvel Comics in the early days. And the idea is that in this moment, she gets recruited by them because they want to open up their superhuman law division. So she's going to be the one that's defending the supervillains, because that's who tends to hire lawyers, is supervillains.
I'm here for that show. That show sounds interesting.
And there's lots of good you can do with it, lots of very interesting plot lines you can explore with it. And, but I also like the idea which has been put out there, that basically Titania shows up.
Who's Titania?
That's the lady that bursts through the wall at the very end of it. And I think that's another person that we're going to actually get sort of a rapidly evolving story with. Because she is She-Hulk's arch enemy, but I think they're going to very quickly become best friends.
It seemed to me like she was like a jobber in the WWF. Like when the Brooklyn Brawler came out to take a whooping from somebody to make a name for themselves. That's what it felt like.
Well, yes, but here's what's interesting. Okay, so I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it, but maybe everyone else saw what I saw. She has a flying sidekick, which is a very showy move. The problem is that it's also a very dangerous move, because unless you hit it square, that's very easy for someone to catch you, which She-Hulk does, punch you in the sternum, and now you've just added her force to your force, because we see that She-Hulk takes off her shoes, hits her square, and that's what knocks her back and, knocks her out. And the idea being that Titania doesn't really have the training as a fighter.
That, and she thought she was going to be beaten up on, like crusty lawyers. And all of a sudden, the superhero shows up?
I mean, she definitely got caught off guard, because she says, "Who are you?"
Right. Like, wait a second, the superhero's here too? Like, what are you doing here?
So I think I think her being a jobber definitely is a very real possibility. And, as pointed out to me by some friends, there was another Titania who was an unlimited class wrestler alongside Screaming Mimi, who eventually becomes Songbird, who is one of the founding members of the Thunderbolts. So, yeah.
Wow.
There are layers upon layers of this, and I this is why this show is so exciting. This is why every first episode is exciting. I would almost feel bad to be one of these people who's famous enough that you get like the first 3 episodes to watch and review, because yes, you're going to get a lot more, and it's probably going to be great, but you're going to miss out this real, just joyful,
right?
You know what it could be.
Yeah. The what if arguments amongst friends; those are great.
Those are always fantastic. All right. Any extra thoughts about tonight's episode, Mozz?
Where did we end this? Where does this one end? And then we got a secret post-credit scene too, right?
Oh, well, yes, we got the Star-Lord parentage thing. Okay, so here's the thing. So the post-credit scene is whether or not Steve Rogers ever had sex.
Right.
Which, and again, it is a huge leap to say that in the years after he reconnects with Peggy that they never had sex.
Right.
That is just a huge effing leap.
Yeah.
That because they were together for like a year or two. They're running around a lot, but they clearly had time to sit in a bar at some point and have a drink. Yeah. Like he and Peggy definitely went on a couple of dates in that, Yeah. So just the idea that, he probably stripped Peggy Carter at some point. That makes sense. What is a little interesting is that what the Hulk says, what Banner says, is he lost it to a girl when he was on tour with the USO show in 1943. And what's interesting about that is that it doesn't say one of the dancers. Mm-hmm. It just says a girl he met on the USO tour in 1943.
Could be
and
local.
Well, there's this very famous scene where there's a woman he meets who shares a very longing glance with him, and he kind of like, "How are you doing?" And that actress went on to play Meredith Quill,
who is
Star-Lord's mom.
Ah.
Now the timeline doesn't work out for that to be Star-Lord's mom. But it does work out. Yeah. It could be Star-Lord's grandmom, and either her son or her daughter was Star-Lord's mom. Just like there's that generation move with Ms. Marvel, that little bit of space between the super soldier and the celestial gets you that unlocking of the secret powers.
Aha.
So assuming that there is some deeper story that is in the lore that's hidden in all the secret legends, that could be that. That's why Star-Lord could actually awaken the celestial spark, because he had that little bit of Vita Ray left over from Steve Rogers from when his grandmom got knocked up. Hooray for unprotected sex. Well, it was the 40s. They actually were well aware of condoms, and Steve should have used a condom. But, if he didn't, the universe might not have been saved.
We don't know that he did or didn't, but he probably did.
We don't know, yeah. I can say that definitely the young lady, and that's what I'll say. That's the thing about Steve. I always make this point. Steve has had a lot of girlfriends over the years, and he has definitely had sex with a lot of them. Not a one of them is ever like, "Oh, Steve, you awful cad." They're all like, "Oh, that's Steve." It's like whatever he did it right. And he was probably a real gentleman about everything. It's sort of like, what's his name? I think, Casanova. Don Juan's the fictional one. Casanova is the actual guy who's an actual guy. And, Casanova, he was just such a sweetheart as he was just betting all of these women of Europe that no one ever really there's no real story of the person who felt horribly wronged by Casanova. There was no, he was very upfront about everything. He was real sweet and really kind and a very generous lover. And, then he moved on. And quite frankly, that superhero lifestyle, that's not really what I wanted for me,
Right.
But it's
Some people are just a gift to the world,
Yeah, it's a good notch to have on your bedpost.
Yeah, it's plenty to share.
Anyway, so that is that story. That is the Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers did have sex, probably many times with at least two women we know of. Because again, you're not going to tell me he didn't have sex with Peggy Carter. These were, right. Freaking. It's the 40s. That's not
a world I want to live in.
Yeah, you're in the middle of war. You're not going to have sex. You're not going to do it for America, the red, white, and the blue. Come on. We could die tomorrow.
Right.
Either one of them.
Don't you want to have something extra to fight to come back for?
Exactly. Anyway, it's one of my favorite lines from Grease 2 is "Do it for America, the red, white, and the blue." Oh, good Lord. Okay, moving right along. So that was that episode. Post credits and all. I hope we didn't forfend the delicate sensibilities of our listeners. Mozz, well, actually, first off, before you tell us where we can reach you, let me tell you a little bit about Capes and Lunatics, how people can give us money.
Oh, boy.
Because you know what, Mozz? I do like money. And before you give us the money, you can tell us anything you want to know about us, about what we talk about here. And you can write to us at CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, all one word, at gmail.com. Write us a letter. We will read it on the air, either for this show or any of the other shows in the panoply of shows we have on Capes and Lunatics. You can also, if you don't like to write, but you just want to give that passion of your voice to one of the topics we discuss, you can call us at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. If you don't know which show you want to talk about, why don't you go to our link tree in our show notes, go to linktr.ee/Capes and Lunatics. Go there. You're going to see all of our shows. You can see what we're about to do, what we have done, and you can tell us what your thoughts are. And while you're there, if you like what we do, why don't you give us some money? You can either buy delightful items like our real aluminum mugs, keep your cold drinks cold all night long, or your hot ones in the morning, if that's your preference. You can get wonderful T-shirts that we sell and many other delightful products. Or if you don't want a product but just want to show your love, subscribe to our Patreon. If you give $5 a month, you will get full video and the ability to vote on our movies and choices and questions that we put to you, our viewers, like what is the worst superhero movie of all time. Next week, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen versus, what was the other one? Was it Spawn? Now I'm blanking on which one it is. I know League of Extraordinary Gentlemen's on there.
It wasn't bad. I enjoyed that movie.
I like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, don't get me wrong. But man, I'm blanking on the other show. But anyway, we'll know, but if you listen to our other shows, you'll find out. And you can subscribe to our Patreon, see it, actually watch the review, and let us know what you think was the worst of the two shows. And Mozz, if people would just like to talk to you about something else absolutely free, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email where our mothers and fathers once said at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things when I feel like it, like Stargirl, unless I've already missed it, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
Quality.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me hearties, you have come through another episode and listened to our wonderful tales of our gamma-infused goddess, the She-Hulk. Tune in again next week when we once again sail full stream ahead. Arr.